Hello everyone, what is going on? It is BradPhusion here and welcome back to Re-Engineering, where in today's video I will be demonstrating a little bit more in depth how the Starburst Cannon works and the basic functionality and the parts that go into actually making it work, because that was highly requested after I put up the 2 videos yesterday showing it off. And a few things I want to note first is, one, I'm calling it the Starburst Cannon now because one of you guys actually named it that and I really like the name. I thought it suited really nicely. The second thing is that these aren't the original Starburst Cannons I've used. These have a little less gravity generators to push it forth, simply so I can show it off a little bit easier for you guys so it won't do too much damage. But and the second thing is I'm now using silicon ore instead of stone ore because I've modified the color for it to make it orange, which I thought was kind of cool for the videos anyway. So it might not do too much damage, at least not as much as the stone does because of the density and everything like that. But we're hoping we're still going to get an alright outcome. So first things first is the basics of the cannon, including the basic pieces. So right here we have a really teeny tiny setup that uses the minimal amount of components needed to actually get this thing to work. So here we have a connector on the front, which obviously deposits the ore. We only have one here. And then we have 4 spherical generators to kind of propel or attract the ore. Then you have 4 grav gens on the side here to compress the ore into a tighter pattern. And then on the back here you have 4 grav gens to push it forth, and a spherical one here to do the opposite of what these ones here in the front are doing. That is the basics of the Starburst Cannon. It doesn't have too much to it. The values are kind of interesting to set, but I'll show you guys how the actual spherical gens work in a second. But first things first, let me fire the cannon once more for you guys using a slightly slower speed here. So we're going to stop depositing the ore out from all the connectors there. We're going to now compress it slightly without lagging too much. You can see it goes down to this little teeny like ball-like state, and then we are going to give it a little bit of rotation because why not, and then fire it at the enemy ship because that is how you do it. Now it won't do too much damage this way I don't think, because I didn't use the maximum amount of ore I could have, and there wasn't too much grav gens, but it still has enough force to push back the red ship as well as destroying a few components here and there. So I'd have to say that was quite effective. Not as effective as I would have liked, but it was still quite effective. And the enemy ship is now riddled with all this ore here that they'll have to spend ages picking up, because if they don't pick it up and they do decide to fly the ship around, it can cause more damage to the actual ship. And I'll show you guys that right now actually. So let me get out of here. Let me just quickly fly over here so I can take control of the red ship, and then I'll fly it around for a bit with the ore in the side of the ship to just show you guys how much damage that it actually does over time. So here we have a secondary seat up the top to just kindly to kind of demonstrate this. So say we're fleeing from the battle, we have all the ore on the inside here, and if I was to fly to a higher speed, obviously a little bit higher than what I have right now, and don't forget that the ship also has its own gravity turned on as well, so just keep that in mind, the fact that when I fired, it was slightly pulled down as well, meaning I've kind of counted for that. And if you guys were wondering, because I did the last test without actually using gravity on the enemy ship, so this one now actually has gravity, and you guys can see that it was still quite effective despite it kind of dropping off. Even towards the end it still hit the back part of the ship, despite it being within the gravity range. So if the shots were actually inside the wall, if I used more force using the grav gens, when the ore does get stuck inside the wall, it will do slightly a bit more damage. But right now with the gravity on and the fact that none of the ore had enough speed to get stuck inside the walls, it's just kind of hanging around here, and I think it's like digging its way through the ground. But regardless of that, we'll then move on to actually showing you guys how the actual gravity works. Okay, so here we have a really basic setup using a 2D plane to kind of demonstrate how the spherical gravity generators work on the Starburst Cannon. So here you see 4 spherical grav gens. The one in the back here, or the one at the left side, is going to count as the offset grav gen, which is what we have with inside the cannon here. So consider the right side of the screen here to be the front of the ship and the left side to be the back. Now the default setup will be something like this, where you'll have the spherical gen on the back there, the offset one, and then you have the grav gens on the top and bottom or around the ship there to kind of do the opposite effect to kind of propel the ore. And if I start depositing ore here, you'll see that the ore will start to build up at the front of the ship because, yet again, like I said, the spherical gen at the back there is offset, causing the ore to levitate at the front of the ship. Now the values here are a little bit different to what the actual cannon is normally set to, but I can still show you guys it anyways. So if I go to my control panel here, the outer gen is set to a radius of 20 and set to a quarter of the inner gen or the offset gen's acceleration, depending on how many you actually have. So if you have 4 outer gens, you'll halve the value by 4. But in this case I should have divided by 2, which would have been 0.50, but regardless of that, it still works the same way. The interior gen, or the offset generator, is set to a radius of 10, which is about half. It really depends on how far away you want it from the ship. So if you want it a little bit further away, you'll usually set the offset one to be a high value, because this is the one that pushes it away from the ship. So if your ship is a little bit longer, or you had these further back inside the ship, you'll set the radius a little bit higher depending on that. But since we're in a really tight space here, you're going to use the smallest radius possible, which is 10, and the acceleration is -1 here. But closing that down, you'll see that the ore is built up at the front. Now obviously the collector can't actually deposit more ore, sorry, the connector, because it's actually kind of hanging around it. But let's try it using a center generator instead of an offset one. So if we have it like that, you'll see that it will start depositing more ore, but the ore will actually form a circle around the ship instead of forming in one place. This is okay if you wanted something like a shield, but you need a lot of ore to actually get this to work, and it wouldn't really work as a gun because, well, you'll end up shooting yourself in the arse because of the ore that's floating behind your ship, as you see on the left side of the screen right here. Unless you're into that sort of stuff, then that's completely the way you want to go. But like I said, it's not that good if you're trying to make it into a weapon, so that's why I have the offset generator to do exactly this, where the ore is focused into a point in the front of the ship, which is quite clearly demonstrated right here, which I think is an awesome way to kind of show you guys how it works, and even then you still see the curvature there, which is really awesome. So that's the basics of the gravity gens inside the cannon. So I thought I'd show you guys a few scenarios as well that I thought you guys might like. So now you guys have seen the basics of how the cannon was made, the basic components gone into it, and how the actual spherical generators work to focus the ore in one spot. Now a lot of you guys have said that it charges up a little bit too slowly, or it fires a little bit too slowly. So here I've got a version of the cannon that is slightly supercharged. It has, instead of having 5 or 4 collectors, it has 13 connectors on the front here, and it has a lot more grav gens to point forward or to fire at a higher speeds. So let me just demonstrate how quickly this thing can actually unload the ore. If I press 4 now, and it should start coming out of the cannon. So yet again, it's using 13 instead of a lower number, which means it will actually charge up a lot quicker than what it was doing previously. I do have quite a bit of ore inside of this thing, so I won't be charging up to its maximum because my frame rate will drop to a considerably low number. But instead, we're just going to charge up a little bit here, and we'll then fire it at the red ship. Now I have reloaded the save, so the ship is actually undamaged, as you guys can clearly see here, just in case you were wondering. But now that the cannon should be almost charged up completely, we've got almost the same amount of ore as we had during the demonstrations I showed you guys the other day, in a matter of just a few seconds without me having to fast forward the video or anything, which I think is really cool. And yet again, you can compact it like so, which does get the ore kind of stuck inside the collectors if you do so when you're actually ejecting ore. The best thing you want to do is actually hold off compressing it until all the ore is actually being deposited, or until you turn off the connectors. But I feel that's enough ore there, so we're going to turn off the connectors now, like so. It'll stop depositing ore, and then now we can compress it like so, into a really teeny tiny ball. Oh, well, not really a ball, but into a really teeny tiny compact looking bullet sort of thing, which I think is kind of cool. You can add a little bit of rotation to it if you want, but we're just going to fire it at the ship here right now. And there you guys go. It goes a little bit laggy like. It's actually going a little bit faster than my camera here, but there we go. We've caught up with it now. And kabang! A lot of it missed because I aimed a little bit too high there, but it did reasonably enough damage, I think. It didn't really do too much to the front. You got rid of a reverse engine here. I think there's some ore lingering inside the ship here as well, which I think is kind of cool. So it didn't do as much damage as I would have liked. Got rid of this over here for whatever reason. I don't know why that one's missing. That one. Oh, okay. Apparently some of them actually hit the top and went through and destroyed some of that. But that's the basic damage. And I think, is that over there destroyed as well? Ah, seems like it is. Yeah, so that's the damage done from a little bit higher charge up. Now, I didn't use as many rounds as I could have. I can even, yet again, charge it up once more, like so. And you'll see the order deposit. I think I still have quite enough in there to actually charge it up, I think a few times, actually. Yeah, no, we have about 50k left, so we can do a second charge up using only a smaller amount of ore. Now, some of you guys were wondering, what would happen if I was to use this like a machine gun instead of charging up before firing, just letting it unload all of its components? And we'll do that right now. So we have a little bit here, so we'll just fire this one shot real quick here before unloading all our components. This won't do too much damage, I don't think. Oh, but we'll follow it anyways, just in case. And kabam! I got rid of, what was that? Engine? Yeah, I got rid of an engine. Not too big of a deal. So now we're just going to turn on the connectors and just let it fire out its load. So there you go. Oh, look at the wrong cannon. But you'll see it slightly firing some more. Now, it doesn't do too much on the initial impacts, but over time it does damage the actual ore, and I think I've actually ran out, which is typical. But we'll demonstrate that later using the bigger ship anyways. So we'll turn this off for now, turn that off, and we'll get out and we'll show you guys the other ships I've made. So a lot of you guys requested that I try to put the cannon inside of a big ship and how it would actually look if I was to do that. So here we have a few broadside cannons here, or broadside starburst cannons, that only stick out by one block, which is the smallest amount I managed to make it stick out. Now you probably could stick it in a little bit further if you wanted to. You just need a little access port here for the exterior connectors here to actually eject the ore. But I thought it looked kind of cool sticking out like this. The only problem with having these too close together, like I've done so here, is that at the default values of the radius for the interior and the inner and outer generators, the ore will actually, or the gravity fields will actually collide and cause the ore to build up in between. So what I've done is I've reduced the numbers for these ever so slightly. I'll show you guys that right now. So we have the outer gen now set to 20 instead of 30 or 40, and the inner is set to 12 instead of 17. The acceleration is still the same, however. But anyways, we'll go back, we'll charge this up using the slightly lower values, and you guys will see that it still charges up the same, it just is a little bit closer to the actual front of the cannon. So now we're charging up 3 small rounds here, and we're going to fire it at the side of this red ship, which I think we might miss a little bit of it, but it should be okay. We'll do a little bit of damage, I think. Where are we lined up? I think here, here, and maybe the front side? I'm not too sure. I'm just taking a guess here, but you see it charging up rather nicely. A few small rounds. Now you don't even charge it up fully to get it to work. I'm pretty sure all the gravity here interacts with each other, at least the forward thrusting ones, so it'll, when you activate to fire them, you can fire them all at once, which is what I'm doing anyways. You can't fire them individually if you set it up to fire them individually, but I'm firing them all at once just because guns blazing and because it's fun. So what we're going to do is we're going to stop charging up now because I want to use this as the machine gun type as well. So we've stopped charging up. Let's compress it a little bit here. Makes it look kind of cool, kind of pointed. Actually almost looks like it's finishing off the little triangle it's making. But anyways, or the pyramid, sorry, not triangle. But now we can get a little bit of spin if you wanted to. But yeah, screw the spinning. We'll fire it. Firing it now. There we go. All the rounds are gone. And kabang. Push the red ship back ever so slightly. Massive explosions. Ore is leaking through their ship. Components are flying. Yeah, it did alright. I think I did say it would maybe miss on the front or here, but it did alright damage. It didn't do too much damage, but it did alright damage. Now to go to the machine gun type, where you just basically, I think that would be used as like a last resort. If you don't have the time to charge up, you can just fire your load. So let's fire our load here at the enemy ship. So there we go. Rocks are going flying, and you can see that it does destroy components quite easily. The armor itself will take quite a few hits before it actually goes away, but it does actually get damaged over time, which is actually really, really cool. So you can just use this just to lob things at the enemies, and you can even make their guns go crazy if their guns were set to targeting, what is it called, moving objects. So you can destruct their guns whilst you're charging up another cannon if you wanted to. It's basically up to you how you want to use these things, but they are effective at spamming and they're effective at charging up cannon shots. And this is the amount of damage done within a minute or so of just basically consistent fire. The back here is just destroyed to hell. I think we're missing quite a bit here, but we're still doing a fair amount of damage. Oh yes, this ship is... The ship is well and truly, well, not maybe screwed, but will take a little while to repair it. So this here is probably an easier way without having to worry about lag either, because this doesn't generate too much lag, as it's just consistent small ore fire. It's not charging up a massive cannon. So if you wanted to use it like that, it's basically ineffective. So it has multiple fire modes, which I think is kind of cool for a ship. You can even, if you wanted to, even put on a spin, which I don't think is really worthwhile, but you can do it nonetheless if you really, really wanted to. So as the ore is going around, you'll see it slightly starts to spin, which means that you'll get a higher chance of hitting somewhere interesting instead of hitting the same spot over and over again. But let's stop firing now because we've bombarded the poor thing way too much. I think we've actually got separate parts of the ship now. Oh god, that looks so cool. Anyways, moving on to the next ship. So here we have a red ship with an actual Starburst cannon built into the front of it. Now I've tried to blend it in as best as I could. It doesn't really look all too blended, but I think it doesn't look too bad either, having it right on the front here. So, you know, it charges up the same way. If I start charging it up now, you'll see that it'll start spewing at the ore and it'll charge up in front of the ship. Now, you guys are probably wondering, and you guys have asked as well, what would happen if you were to move the ship whilst charging up the cannon? So we'll get a few bits, a little bit more ore out the front of here before doing that, but I can say that it does work quite fine at lower speeds. Higher speeds wouldn't be too bad if you had the compression gravity generators turned on. That actually keeps it in like a really tight space, so you can move around mid-charge if you were to turn on the compression. So what you do if you were to force yourself to move, so the main way you'd use a cannon is you wouldn't really be moving too much. But if you did have to move to dodge something, or something came up and you were midway charging and you had to move, what you'd do, like right now for example, you'd stop spewing out the ore, like I've done so here. You will then compress it into like a tight little bubble here. And now if I start moving the ship, like you'll see me doing now, the ore will actually follow me for the most part in a tight little pattern. Now it might collide when I go backwards and stop suddenly, but it will follow me forward, it'll follow me side to side. Even if I tilt slightly, it'll go up as well. If I go down, it'll go down. So basically it will follow you for the most part. If maybe you move too quickly or spin too fast, you might lose a bit of rock here and there, but using the compression grav gens, you can keep it in a small place when you're moving around. Once you feel yourself, you know, you're alright, you can just release the compression and it'll eventually form back into its normal shape of a shield or a wall right in front of your ship. So once this calms down a little bit here, we will then fire it at the ship over here, if we are lined up well enough. Now the ship isn't damaged, at least it shouldn't be unless something from over there hit it, but it looks, you know, it looks alright. Nice and standard looking ship. Now this is over 100 meters away. This is what all the red bars were, if you were wondering. This is the 100-meter mark, so this is easily over 100 meters away from the ship. So the ore is still moving slightly, but if I want to compress it down to a smaller space to make it a little bit easier, I'll do that right about now. So now you see all the ore going towards its front. I can spew out a little bit more here, and I'll fast forward to when the cannon is actually ready to fire. So I think we have enough ore there, and to end today's video, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to fly this big red ship towards that ship over there and fire at the same time, just so I can show you guys how, you know, how that actually works. So what I'm going to do, obviously, is I'm going to compress the ore down into a tight little packet whilst I maneuver my ship around, because that's how you would do it, and plus you'd compress it anyways before firing. So now I'm going to reverse the ship backwards here, and the ore will follow in suit, which is quite nice. So I'm going to fly back to a reasonable speed, maybe not too fast, maybe 10 meters a second here. I'll slow myself down, and then I'll go 10 meters a second in the other direction, and then fire the ore. So once we reach 10 meters a second, there we go. We can now start to slow down slightly here, and that way we can reach 10 meters a second before actually having to fire our gun, which I think will be really, really cool. And I think you guys would like that for like the end scenario here. Obviously I can move the camera, but it'll be a little bit hard to multitask this while slowing down the ship at the same time. But anyway, the ship is now almost at a stop here, and we'll now start to go forth. Hopefully the bullets are still line up. I'm pretty sure they would be. And once we reach 10 meters a second, I will fire the round at the enemy ship. So, almost reaching speeds here. Come on, 10 meters a second. We're getting close to the camera now, so we should be quite close to the value. And here we are, almost at 10 meters. There we go, 10 meters a second here. We're ready to fire the cannon at the enemy ship. So let's get to this. So here we go. We're flying forth. Obviously we're not flying too fast, but you can fly a little bit faster. Obviously the ore's not going to have too much problem with that. And firing the cannon. Obviously you can have a lot more grav gens behind that to fire that a lot faster than what I was doing, but still, regardless of that, the ore still pushes back the enemy ship. Obviously because of the gravity generators that the ship actually had on, it kind of redirected it. Also me moving the ship around before kind of maybe go a little bit off center here, but regardless, it did an alright amount of damage here. A few things destroyed up here and whatnot, and it did alright, and it was as good as I was hoping. But I guess as a really, really big fuck you to the red ship. Yeah, because I don't like the red ship at all. Anyways, that does it for today's video. Hopefully I've managed to demonstrate enough to give you guys a basic understanding of how the cannon actually worked, the damage it is capable of outputting, even using silicon ore with slightly less powerful gravity generators. Basically, a few modifications you can do to make it more effective, and even a few prototypes I made to start this thing actually out. Anyways, that does it for today's video. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. I will be putting this up in the workshop so you guys can get an even better basic understanding. I figured some people can learn a little bit easier just from looking at it than listening to me show you guys it. But hopefully I've been clear enough with what I've been trying to demonstrate. I will leave this here. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Stay awesome, everyone.